glass is a brilliant development. In addition to the fact that it is useful for putting away food and drink, it can likewise be enhanced to make an extravagant thing. Found around 3600 BC in Mesopotamia, glass was just found in the possession of the world class from the start. Given its delicacy and the trouble of its creation, glass appeared to be bound to stay a costly and uncommon material. One development may have changed that, nonetheless. As indicated by Pliny the Elder, the designer introduced himself to Roman Emperor Tiberius with an inquisitive revelation. The cunning man had developed a tough, adaptable type of glass. In another record, Tiberius was given another glass cup that was pretty yet nothing uncommon in his assessment. After Tiberius gave it back to the innovator, the glassmaker tossed the cup on the floor. To the ruler's wonder, it was not crushed yet just somewhat scratched. Unquestionably, the man appeared well and good, he was. Yet, it was anything but a long life. Apparently, Tiberius was worried that this revelation would demolish the estimation of silver and gold, so he had the innovator executed. While Pliny thought this story was impossible, a few specialists accept the man may have created an early type of the shatterproof borosilicate glass utilized today. What occurs on the odd chance that you take a bit of cake and cut it? You get two littler pieces of cake. Imagine a scenario where you cut it once more. Furthermore, again question mark for most scholars in the Old World, there was no limit to the measure of cutting you could do. Regardless of the amount you cut, there was consistently a littler bit of cake, like a horribly disillusioning birthday celebration. In any case, to Democritus and Leucippus, there was an uncuttable, littlest bit of cake. The Greek for uncuttable is atomos, from which we get atom. According to these savants, particles arrive in an assortment of structures. By blending these various sorts of particles, all obvious issue is made. Today, we may call these blends particles. In spite of being previously hypothesized in the 5th century BC, the presence of molecules was still questioned by certain individuals even toward the finish of the 19th century AD. There were even traces of quantum hypothesis in the Old World. As per Epicurus, iotas moved in straight lines when nothing was following up on them, yet they periodically turned indiscriminate. Smart thought in a lifetime, at that point a large portion of us would be fulfilled. However, there are some fortunate individuals who are simply overflowing with genius. Aaron of Alexandria was one of those people whose each inactive idea appears to have been a stroke of motivation. Living in the primary century AD, he designed numerous things that would not be seen again for almost 2,000 years. One of his first thoughts united science and religion in a satisfying manner. Blessed water has for some time been a component of strict love. In the Old World, you needed to pay for this water. Yet, significantly under the eyes of the divine beings, a few people would take more than they paid for. Aaron was working on it, however. 3. He made the principal candy machine. An admirer stored the coin into a space, and this moved a switch that opened the line. At that point the water streamed out. When the coin fell into the machine, the water halted. Each admirer got the water he paid for, and the sanctuary got all the cash it. 7 of the books composed by Aaron of Alexandria actually exist, and they are loaded with astounding innovations. A portion of his thoughts were intended to appear to be wonderful. Despite the fact that we partner programmed entryways with shops, Aaron planned to frighten admirers when he made programmed entryways for a temple. In Aaron's plan, the entryways of the sanctuary would not open when just anybody drew closer. They would possibly open when a fire was lit on a raised area. The warmth of the fire warmed the air held in the empty special raised area, and the extending air drove water into a basin. The substantial can pulled on a rope and opened the doors. For today, we may be more intrigued via program entryways in the event that we had a cleric light a fire and serenade as we strolled toward the entryways.
Heron was an entertainer and a flamboyant inventor. Whilst many of Heron's designs were intended to either impress worshippers in a temple or to entertain audiences in a theatre, some were mechanical toys or novelties built simply for amusement in the home. But one invention could have changed the world forever. This peculiar device is not just a toy or a novelty, it's a steam-powered engine, invented by Heron. The strange machine is Heron's steam bowl, the first steam turbine engine and the fastest revolving mechanical instrument in the ancient world. Heron was just half a step away from inventing the steam engine. He knew the principles of steam power and had designed a revolutionary device. What might have happened if he'd taken that extra half step?
I'm heating up this container here so that it generates steam. There's water in here, and the steam will come up through these pipes into this ball and out through these jets, and then it should spin.
Sets of glasses worn on the face to assist individuals with seeing were first utilized in Italy in the 13th century. As all people who wear glasses can let you know in this time of face veils, there are disadvantages to wearing glasses on your nose. Wouldn't it be a lot more straightforward in the event that you could simply pop the focal points into your eyes? In 1508, Leonardo da Vinci composed the composition that depicted how diving your head into water changes how you see. He thought of channels tipped with focal points and loaded up with water that could be joined over the eyes. They were not practical. René Descartes thought of an easier rendition. Why not fill a glass tube with water and connect it directly to the eyeball? These focal points would have been the first to be straightforwardly in contact with the eye. Shockingly, they would likewise have prevented you from blinking. 6. To improve Descartes' plan, Thomas Young decreased the length of the glass tubes so the eyelids could close. Yet, to get them to remain set up, he needed to utilize wax to adhere them to the eyeball. Contact focal points were a smart thought, yet innovation simply had not made up for lost time. Flames are sentimental things. On a winter night, it is flawless to sit and watch one. Be that as it may, they are inconceivably wasteful at warming the home. Most of the warmth goes up the stack. Those near the fire can be singed on the parts close to the fire and freezing on their backs. The Romans were not ones to allow this failure to stand. They concocted the technique for halfway warming their homes. When they manufactured their manors, they previously made an empty space under the ground. These spaces were upheld by tiles with enormous holes between them, known as hypocausts. These structures permitted hot air to go through them. The fire was diverted into the hypocaust, and the hot air warmed the home from beneath. The air was additionally drawn through diverts in the dividers. So the entire home was warmed and not simply the parts close to the fire. 7 When the Roman Empire fallen, hypocausts left design and Europe turned into a luxurious spot to live for a long time. Latrines are consistently a smart thought. Contact with human waste is probably the most ideal approaches to get an awful disease, so attempting to move sewage away from where you live ought to be obvious. For the vast majority of mankind's history, as well as could be expected to watch meander a little path from his home. To utilize a latrine that was minimal in excess of a gap in the ground. Regularly, the latrine in the house was only a stoneware vessel that must be exhausted into the street. In 1700 BC in the Minoan Palace of Crete, latrines were made that pre-owned fleeing the sewage. This fantastic royal residence may have been the primary spot to have flushing toilets. Communal latrines with long banks of seats and running water stayed in presence for quite a long time. However, we would need to hang tight for the cutting-edge flushing latrine to come into the home. What's more, the innovation of delicate latrine pop-up
The engine behind me is Babbage's difference engine number 2, designed by Charles Babbage, an English mathematician who is also known as the first computer pioneer. Babbage designed this machine between 1847 and 1849. Babbage, as we know, did not succeed in completing any of his own engines in their entirety, so there is no complete Babbage engine. This is the first physical realization of any of Babbage's complete designs in the metal. The engine itself weighs 5 tons. It consists of 8,000 parts made of bronze, cast iron and steel, and it measures 11 foot long and 8 foot high. It's operated by cranking a handle. What it does is it calculates and tabulates the value of any 7th order polynomial, a class of mathematical expressions, to 31 decimal places. It not only calculates that with unerring accuracy, it also prints an inked hard copy.
In 1900, some sponge fishermen were blown off course in a storm and took shelter on Antikythera, a small island near Crete. When the storm had passed, they dived. To their surprise, they found a 2,000-year-old wreck of a cargo ship that had been carrying bronze statues. The contents of the wreck were transferred to a museum in Athens. Among them was a strange lump of bronze and decayed wood, the size of a shoebox, almost completely encrusted with limestone. This turned out to be one of the most astounding archaeological finds ever. The fragments were what was left of a mechanism that had consisted of at least 30 separate cogwheels, cut from bronze and housed in a wooden box. It was a sophisticated portable clockwork machine from the time of Archimedes. Scientists and archaeologists puzzled about what it could possibly be. From analysis of the position and number of teeth of the cogwheels, Derek Price, a British historian of science, eventually worked out that it was an astronomical device, which even had an instruction manual engraved on the side. Built around 100 BC, the Antikythera mechanism accurately predicted the relative positions of the Sun, the Moon, and the known planets on any chosen date, a kind of analog computer. It even signalled dates when the Olympic Games fell. Nothing quite like it has been found since. We knew the ancient Greeks were clever, but whoever designed this was some kind of genius.
Eureka!